Astana, spiritual capital of the world. The leaders of major world religions discussed how to stop violence and avoid bloody conflicts. Full responsibility storage. Kazakhstan will adopt similar to Switzerland's policies in the field of nuclear energy. The reserve low-enriched Uranium Bank will be created in Ust-kamenogorsk. On the threshold of the WTO, Kazakhstan has completed negotiations on accession to the WTO. Is the economy ready for global competition? Astana miracle. Real forests have been grown in the harsh conditions of the steppe. The green belt softens the semi-arid continental climate of the capital and forms a completely new ecosystem. Kazakhstan marks 200th anniversary of Suyunbay Aronuly.
Good evening, I'm Andrei Tarakov, and this is Kazakhstan Weekly, where we summarize the major local and international news of the past week. Our tonight's guest is a known public figure, Adil Akhmetov. Mr. Akhmetov, I'm glad to see you here in our studio. Kazakhstan was the spiritual capital of the world past week as Astana hosted the 5th Congress of Leaders of World and Traditional Religions. It was attended by representatives of over 42 countries, including leaders of Finland and Jordan. Also, this year's venue was being highlighted by participation of the United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon. The last Congress took place 3 years ago, and unfortunately the number of conflicts in the world has increased during that time, and the so-called Islamic State has been formed on the territory of several states. Nursultan Nazarbayev condemned the shocking acts of mass killings and urged the participants of the Congress to unite and make a common opinion against such atrocities that are masked by religion.
The Congress delegates have agreed that Islamic terrorist state cannot act on behalf of Islam, as Islam is a religion of peace. The Kazakh president encouraged muftis, priests and rabbis to strengthen the congregation of peace, harmony, tolerance and forgiveness. The head of state advised to follow the example of Kazakhstan. Today, there are thousands of mosques, churches, chapels, synagogues and other places of worship in the country, 47 religious mass media, nearly 500 foreign missionaries, and both Christmas and Eid al-Adha are celebrated in Kazakhstan. All Congress participants had noted the Kazakh ethnic and religious phenomenon in a peaceful coexistence. The president of the Pontifical Council for Interreligious Dialogue, Jean-Louis Taron, noted that the Republic of Kazakhstan is the richest country in terms of ethnic and cultural diversity. The bishop of the Evangelical Lutheran Church, Yuri Novgorodov, believes that Kazakhstan could become a platform for negotiations and establishing a way out of a difficult situation for all parties in any conflict. Supreme Mufti of Kazakhstan, Yerjan Mayamerov, is convinced that in the future Astana Interreligious Congress will turn into a global platform which will solve major problematic issues. By the end of the Congress, the Kazakh leader proposed to create a museum of peace and harmony in Astana with a great scientific and research base. Nursultan Nazarbayev also announced the establishment of a special prize and an honorary badge for contribution to the development and strengthening of peace and harmony. As a result, the religious forum adopted the Astana Declaration with 16 points. The initiatives of the President of Kazakhstan include a proposal to stop all military conflicts, stop sanctions and using the media to incite sectarian strife, to unite to solve the problems of poverty, hunger, disease and unemployment. 2 days of the Congress of Leaders of World and Traditional Religions have become historical. They certainly have enriched the world with hope to avoid the worst-case conflicts with faith and wisdom of the mankind. Thus, we are sending a signal to those hot spots and the outcasts, as they have been called by the King of Jordan, who act on behalf of religion, causing the great damage to peace in the world and our religions.
Mr. Akhmetov, let's talk first of all about the role of religious leaders of securing peace all over the world.
By the way, I've participated this Congress and also the last and the previous, all in all 3 Congresses. And from year to year, the number of participants is growing, and the quality is also growing. And as you have just underlined that this Congress was participated by keynote speakers such as Ban Ki-moon, Secretary General of UN, and also King Abdullah of
Jordan.
and also Secretary General of OSCE, and very many other
A lot of high-ranked participants.
Not only religious leaders, but also politicians. For example, the President of Finland has also participated in this 5th forum. And the role of the Congress, formally initiated by the President of Kazakhstan, is growing from year to year. And all the participants, I mean the leaders, not only the leaders of world and traditional religions, but every participant has underlined that during the years of mistrust, during the years of wars, for example, in the Middle East and elsewhere, Kazakhstan is assembling the leaders of world and traditional religions, and I, as a participant, may add to this that all of them spoke in one single language of trust, language of understanding, and language of concord. And surprisingly, very surprisingly, and from year to year, this our Congress is becoming, already has become, an international platform for interreligious and intercultural dialogue. See, and this was emphasized by all the participants. And I was impressed by the keynote speaker, King Abdullah of Jordan, who also praised the role of Kazakhstan in peacekeeping and in organizing interreligious dialogue here in Astana. By the way, the president also has underlined that the pyramid was established for the only sake to hold this Congress, you see?
At the first Congress,
yes.
President said that
yes.
Kazakhstan will build a special
and now it is
building
already implemented into life, and this building is serving as a dialogue platform for all the coming and previous congresses. By the way, 16th Congress will be also held here in this venue, and in 2018. And I would say this Congress was very successful. And our president participated and made 2 speeches at the opening plenary session and at the closing plenary session. And he made 2 very important proposals. First, to create and to establish the Museum of the Congress of leaders of world and traditional religions, because this institution has become already international institution and well recognized all over the world. And it is also recognized by the UN. And the participants of the Secretary General of UN again underlines how important this Congress is becoming. And I listened to his speech, and he was also very satisfied with the atmosphere of the Congress, because this Congress unites all the religions, and every leader speaks in the same language, you see, and it's very important, because at this period of our century, a lot of atrocities are taking place in the Middle East, in, for example, Libya, in Iraq, in Syria, and elsewhere. And the so-called Islamic State has been created in 3 states already, in Iraq, in Syria, and in, I think, Libya or somewhere else. But all the leaders have underlined they should not let this terrorist state exist further on. and they should fight together against this, the so-called Islamic State, which covers itself by the religion of Islam. And everybody, every leader has underlined that this terrorism has nothing to do with Islamic religion.
With any religion?
Absolutely, with any religion. And it was also emphasized, the same constructive phrase was repeated by the Secretary General of OSCE, by Mr. Zanier, you see. And he openly said, this terrorism has nothing to do with religions. And on the other hand, I would say, majority of the humankind believe in God. From some sources I read that almost 80% of the population of the planet believe in God. But in some sources it is underlined that 51% believe in God. But it doesn't mean, but majority, we can say that the majority of the population of the planet believe in God.
They believe.
And from this point of view, the leaders of world and traditional religions play very great role. By the way, one of the sessions was devoted to the youth here, because the leaders of traditional and world religions paid much attention that youth should be educated. They should be educated, and we should take care of the youth. Otherwise, they will join the so-called Islamic State or Boko Haram or other terrorist organizations. And from this point of view, I think they also underlined that mass media should be very careful. Sometimes mass media plays a negative role. Mass media should be very responsible to attract, to broadcast, for example, this kind of information. It destroys sometimes. That's why journalists should be very responsible. You are a journalist and I am so-called journalist. We should be also responsible.
Yes, of course.
In broadcasting any kind of news which will have negative effect on the whole situation.
Kazakhstan will share a similar stance with Switzerland in the field of nuclear energy. The International Atomic Energy Agency approved the agreement on the establishment and utilization of low-enriched uranium bank in Kazakhstan. It will be opened in Kazakhstan on the base of Urbansk metallurgical plant. At the same time, an agreement on the transit of low-enriched uranium through Russia has also been approved, the International Atomic Energy Agency website reported. Before we talk about why we need the bank of low-enriched uranium, what principles it will work on and why it will be placed in Kazakhstan, let's look at the story.
Proposals for the bank creation were originally discussed as early as 2005. It was assumed that any state that doesn't have access to the international uranium market, which will be able to take advantage of a small guaranteed supply of fuel for nuclear power plants, which would be kept in the storage. The country depository should have a positive influence in the world and should not have nuclear weapons. Kazakhstan, which has the largest reserves of uranium and known worldwide for its anti-nuclear initiatives, has offered to host the LEU Bank on its territory. According to the information posted on the IAEA website, the bank will be established in the northeast of the country on the base of the Urbansk metallurgical plant. This venture is part of the Kazatomprom national atomic company. It produces fuel pellets for nuclear power plants. The physical supply of raw materials is 90 metric tons of low-enriched uranium. This amount is enough for a light water reactor with a capacity of 1,000 megawatts. Safety and security of the depository shall be governed by the laws of Kazakhstan in accordance with the IAEA standards. Pursuant to the terms of the agreement, an international bank of low-enriched uranium shall be funded by voluntary contributions regardless of the IAEA budget. The amount of donor contributions for the 10 years of operation of the bank amounts to about $150 million. The conclusion of the two agreements with today's approval by the Board of Governors represents a significant milestone for this important project, enabling us to proceed to full-scale implementation.
Mr. Akhmetov, the issue have faced mixed reaction among the community. Why? What do you think, and how safe are technologies?
I would say it is quite a natural reaction. after Fukushima, for example, nuclear power station was exploded, the attitude of the population, not only of Kazakhstan, but all over the world, has changed to, for example, nuclear power stations. All over the world, for example, up today, for example, 438 power stations are functioning all over the world. About 30 countries own power stations. Even Armenia has one. And some countries like Belgium and France, for example, generate almost 70% of the electricity through these kind of nuclear stations. And practically speaking, every power station, if they, of course, we don't wish, if one of them is exploded, the contamination will be, the result will be disastrous, you see. That's why Atomic Energy Agency, which is placed in Vienna, Austria, keenly interested and every year inspects all the atomic energy electricity generating power stations, because this agency has signed very many agreements with all the countries where they have nuclear power stations, and some of them are very old, you see. That's why they require close inspection. This is, I think, is a good trend, because, of course, from on the one side, atomic energy is clean energy, but on the other side, it is a dirty source. Why I am saying so? Because it also produces waste,
Yes.
Radioactive waste. And this radioactive waste should be controlled and should be put into containers and hidden somewhere in the earth. Some countries hid those containers in the bottom of the seas and oceans, some countries underground. But this is very dangerous. Sometimes I think that why, for example, whales kill themselves, for example. Tens of whales come to the coast and die there, commit suicide. Sometimes I think that it is the consequence of those contamination containers. And let's come back to the question. Low-enriched uranium bank, at last this decision has been taken by the agency and it will be placed in Kazakhstan. And the question is why? Because this agency trusts Kazakhstan, because Kazakhstan is a country which has got rid of its own atomic or nuclear arsenal. You see, Kazakhstan is a peaceful country. Kazakhstan is for peaceful atom. You see, that's why the agency trusts Kazakhstan. This is on the one side. On the other side, Kazakhstan has a lot of uranium deposit, and it takes second place in the world. For example, Australia takes the first place. But in producing uranium, Kazakhstan takes the first place. That's why it is quite natural that Kazakhstan should keep or should create this, establish the bank here in Kazakhstan, because we own a lot of uranium. And what for it is? It is low-enriched uranium is not contaminating. See, it is safe.
Yes.
And all those countries, if not all of them, but some of them will get the nuclear fuel from Kazakhstan. It is safe and sound, and it is controlled. It will be under strict control. And if in case, for example, this facility is attacked by terrorists, for example, if they get the units, nuclear units, they might use for their own, for example, purposes. You see, it may bring to tragedy. That's why I think this is a good policy. All the low-enriched uranium bank should be placed in one place, and at last,
it will be safer.
Yes, to be safer, to be on the safe side. And at last, the agency has made its decision, And the decision has been confirmed, and now this bank will be established in Kazakhstan on the basis of East Kazakhstan plant, metallurgic plant in Ulbinsk.
And as far as I know, it will not take a lot of space.
Absolutely.
Just this studio will be enough for the
Absolutely.
bank.
Because these items are very minute, you see. But they will be used in very many nuclear power stations in the world. By the way, China is planning to create about 20 nuclear plants. And India is very active. And they will get this fuel from Kazakhstan, I hope, because very close.
Yes.
Yeah. And from all points of view, it is justified, I would say. And it is safe. And to the population, we should say, don't worry, it is safe. On the other hand, it adds to the image of Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan is a peaceful country. Kazakhstan leads the anti-nuclear movement. Do you remember, for example, our president participated the last 3 summits of anti-nuclear
security
in Washington, D.C., and in Seoul,
South Korea,
and in Holland, Netherlands, you see. And everywhere, our president is highly respected because he's at the peak of anti-nuclear movement, see. That's why Atomic Energy Agency trusts Kazakhstan very much.
Kazakhstan has completed almost 20 years negotiations on joining the WTO. The final agreement and approval are ahead. World Trade Organization unites 161 states, which means Kazakhstan will be able to trade with all these countries on equitable terms. The question of membership success now depends on the level of development of the real sector, its competitiveness. Over the past few years, the country's leadership is actively promoting accelerated industrial development. Kazakhstan is now implementing the second stage of the comprehensive industrialization. Watch the next story for details.
According to the Kazakhstan Institute of Industry Development, over 600 billion tenge will be allocated for the second 5-year plan of accelerated industrial innovative development from the Treasury. The government had to take into account the changed macroeconomic conditions as well as increased competition for investment and markets. Accordingly, it was decided to apply new structural policy at the next stage of industrialization, particularly to focus on the development of 4 major sectors. The first sector is the commodity area. It should ensure macroeconomic stability and the financial base of the growth. The second sector is the manufacturing industry, which provides the quality of growth. The third is the innovation sector, or the foundation of the future economy that will ensure competitiveness in the future. The fourth sector is employment for people. These 4 sectors together provide the basis for sustainable growth. The main difference of the second AIID phase is the focus on creation of new types of production and opening new markets for domestic products. 770 companies in total across the country have been founded and commissioned during the first 5-year plan. The total amount of funding exceeded 700 billion tenge. Currently, 80% of the created enterprises operate successfully and generate revenue and profit, and only 2% of the enterprises have not yet been able to establish the work process. Experts believe that the WTO will play a major role in the development of the domestic industry. Given that the fierce competition conditions prevail at the organization, domestic enterprises will be forced to learn to compete and to improve the quality of their products.
Mr. Akhmetov, first of all, let's talk about the results of first stage of the industrial development program of Kazakhstan.
As you know, the first part of the industrial innovative program, I would say, has been accomplished. And now we have started the second 5-year plan of industrialization of Kazakhstan. And from this point of view, from all the sources we understand, we read that the processing area in the industrial area already is very active. And from now on, we can say that we don't only depend on oil and gas and metals, for example, because these commodities are the main commodities on which we always depended on. On the other hand, during the crisis years, and the crisis is still going on, and the price for oil and metal has become very low, and that's why our budget is getting less revenues than we used to get before. And that's why these accelerated industrial innovative programs are being implemented very actively. Now, I visited different areas of Kazakhstan, and different areas of Kazakhstan are developing equally because a lot of money is allocated to the regions. For example, I visited Aktobe region and West Kazakhstan region and earlier South Kazakhstan and very many other areas, the Pavlodar region, and industrial programs are being implemented very actively. And a lot of new jobs are being created, you see, during the years of crisis all over the world, especially in the United States and in Western European countries, and in very many other areas. And this program I would say, will save Kazakhstan from catastrophe, economic catastrophe. I am just perhaps exaggerating. I shouldn't have used this word catastrophe. Difficulty might be. And we shall overcome the difficulty. On the other hand, the price for oil now is raising again, you see. It was too low, now it is again raising. That's why we shall overcome all the difficulties. And if we complete the implementation of the second 5-year industrial programs, Kazakhstan will reach a lot of achievements.
An artificial forest is slowly spreading around Astana. The first tree was planted in the harsh conditions in the open steppe 17 years ago, and now it is an area of 73,000 hectares. The local residents refer to the forest as the Astana miracle, and there are already forest animals on its territory. The capital's climate is becoming milder each year thanks to the green zone, according to meteorologists. Astana Forest was Nursultan Nazarbayev's idea. The president personally oversees and takes care of his project. He conducts regular inspections and personally communicates with the scientists and experts who are involved in expanding the green zone. Let's watch the next story for more details.
Traditionally, the head of state flew over the territory of the green zone located in the capital. The result of great work made in over 17 years was quite obvious. Although the plans to build a forest in the steppe were originally perceived quite skeptically. The foresters carefully look after the trees. Also, research projects enabling to identify damages made by pests are conducted as the soil fertility increases. The head of state thanked the workers and scientists for their hard work. He also stressed that the green belt will expand. In the next 5 years, its area will increase to 100,000 hectares. Its own tradition also already appeared here, and each his visit the president releases pheasants in the woods. By the way, this bird is resistant to Astana's difficult climatic conditions and does not require special care. Also, hares and roes thrive in the forest. In addition, beekeeping has started developing in the forest. Last year, 172 hectares of honey plants were planted in the green areas, and soon the honey will be collected from the apiary. Following the meeting on the development of the Green Belt, Nursultan Nazarbayev has instructed local authorities to apply new scientific approaches and to connect tracts of planted forest in the city and beyond. Because of the Green Belt, there is less dust and wind in the city today, and it is also a scientific approach. There is a resting place for the inhabitants of the capital. In addition, there will be biking trails, camping sites, cafes, restaurants, so people will be able to rest. In the first years, we were creating artificial forests, but we did not succeed. But in the last 10 years, we have not been making mistakes. We have a good survival rate. We know the agricultural techniques. We know how to take care of plants. And here's the result. We have learned to create artificial forests in the steppes of Kazakhstan.
Mr. Akhmetov, there are several man-made forests in the world. Why we can call our unique, and could we compare it with someone other in the world?
If you take Kazakhstan's example, it is really unique because when Astana was moved from Almaty to Akmola first, which was renamed into Astana. And this was a clear step, you see, because forests are very rare in Kazakhstan in general. But the initiative of the president was of paramount importance. And as you have just mentioned, that 17 years back, this idea started implemented into life. And from now on, from then, for example, about almost 80,000 hectares of artificial forest have been planted around Astana. And now wind and dust have become more or less than they used to be. And the climate became milder, as you said.
Yes.
This is quite true. Every year our president from a helicopter surveys, for example, the artificial forests around Astana, and he's very satisfied because this forest is already high enough. For example, the trees have grown about 6-7 meters high, and every year our president releases pheasants. And now these forests, artificial forests, for example, is a home not only for pheasants, but also road deers and also hares. See,
that means it's become natural.
And where there is hare, there might be also foxes.
Yes.
You see, and very many other birds. And this green belt around Astana is becoming the recreation center. And President underlined that recreation centers should be created so that the citizens of Astana might use those creation centers. And who knows, in the next 5-10 years, for example, this artificial forest will be linked to the northern natural forests in northern Kazakhstan, in Kokchetau area and so on and so forth. That's why it is a real miracle. And also, on the other hand, this is a good example for other regions of Kazakhstan. See, this is a good initiative.
Everything is possible.
Now, this is a good example which could be followed by others, by other regions. And at the end of the day, the whole Kazakhstan might be green, you see? And when this green forest is everywhere, the health of the citizens will be safer. You see, we'll be on the safe side. And I think from this point of view, the initiative of the president is very, very important, I would say. We appreciate.
Full citizens.
Every citizen should appreciate this good example.
Yes, not only who live in Astana.
Absolutely, absolutely. Especially, I mean, the managers of other regions should take good example, should follow this example.
Everything is possible.
Absolutely, absolutely.
200th anniversary of poet Suyunbay Aronuly is celebrated in Kazakhstan. The cultural and educational evening was organized in honor of the famous Kazakh poet improviser this week in Astana. The event was attended by scientists and cultural figures of Uzbekistan and Kyrgyzstan, as the poet's creativity is common cultural heritage of all Turkic people and is of great interest to scientists.
Suyunbay's songs and Kazakh folk tales were sung and recounted on his anniversary. Suyunbay Aronuly was born in 1815. He is considered the master of the art of song. His sayings passed from generation to generation and have become famous metaphors. The poet improvisers formed under the influence of his father Aron and grandfather Kusep, who also were known for their poetic talent. The poet expressed the thoughts and aspirations of ordinary people in the song's meditations. His whole life and his creations have been serving the interest of the working man. Suyunbay's poetry is characterized by deep philosophical implications. He was the most popular poet in the Seven Rivers area. His traditions have been successfully continued by his talent, students that were led by Jambul Jabayev. One of the first Suyunbay researchers, Mukhtar Avezov, named the poet Golden Pillar of Jetysu poets. Suyunbay died in 1898, and the first collection of his works was published after nearly 40 years. Today, his name is given to a village, a school, and a philharmonic in the Almaty region. The mausoleum and a museum opened in his birthplace, and a bronze monument was erected in Toldikorgan. His name was given to streets in various cities. Many Kazakhstanis remember his photograph on the 3 tenge bill.
Mr. Akhmetov, is there any link between our cultural and historical heritage and unity of Kazakhstan of modern days?
Absolutely, you are right. There is direct link between these events. By the way, this 200th anniversary of great poet of Jetysu, Suyunbay Aronuly, was initiated by the International Turkic Academy in conjunction with Nur Otan political party. And from this point, I would say this event was not only literary and culturally, but also political. And there is good reason for that, because Suyunbay Aronuly was a prominent, as you have already mentioned, improviser of his time. He was a very popular and distinguished poet. By the way, on the scene of the university, a very small piece was staged. The competition between Suyunbay and Katagan. Katagan is a Kyrgyz poet, also a very prominent poet. And this competition was revived, you see. And the viewers were very surprised, because it was very live, very interesting piece. And Katagan, being a popular poet, criticized Suyunbay that he represents a small country, a very small country. And this was a great mistake of Katagan. And Suyunbay just jumped at this chance, and he won the competition. When you listen to his poetry, it impresses as an avalanche, or when the snow, for example, drops from the high mountain. And very interesting piece. And the most important part of Suyunbay's poetry lies in one fact. In his time, he called all the tribes of Kazakhstan to unite together. And from this point of view, his poetry supports the president's idea, eternal Manga El, eternal country, you see? And it was 2 centuries ago, you see? And from this point of view, this historical heritage is linked with the contemporary art, contemporary life, political life of Kazakhstan. And from this point of view, this event impressed all the participants, because a lot of parliamentarians participated, a lot of politicians, a lot of students came to enjoy this event, and I was there also. And I was impressed. And
I see.
One politician said, "At last I understood that Suyunbay was a very prominent, distinguished poet." And this word came from a prominent politician.
Yes. Mr. Akhmetov, thank you very much for being with us today. Looking forward to see you again in our studio. Finally, here is a brief preview of the events of the coming week. On Monday, June 15th, the second stage of the International Special Tactical Peacekeeping Exercise Steppe 2015 will start in Kazakhstan. On Tuesday, Moscow will host a meeting of the Board of Eurasian Economic Commission, and on Wednesday, June 17th, a meeting of the CIS Economic Council will kick off in St. Petersburg. We will discuss this and other important events in our next program. Thank you very much, best of luck and goodbye.